two problems with the statement. The first one being that God, by himself, is an answer to how was the universe created. So you're assuming that the universe had a beginning, yet you assert, without any evidence, that God did not have to have a beginning, simply because it excuses you from needing to say who created God. But in that case, you can just as easily say that the universe is eternal. Or, since the universe wasn't really eternal, you could say that the laws of physics, which enable universes to be created from nothing, are eternal, and then you don't need God. So that is for God existing for eternity without anything creating it. Now, the second problem I have is even deeper than that, and that is with God existing for eternity, for that concept. Because by saying that, you're actually saying that before our universe existed, there was a state where there was God in existence, but nothing else. That means that there was time which God existed in, and not a universe, before time actually existed. By that I mean, if God existed backwards eternity, that means that before the universe was created and before time and space were created, there was a dimension, or think about it that way, there was a realm of existence in which there was God and nothing else. And then, after that, there was a time where time began. That doesn't make any sense. If God exists for eternity, that indicates that God is bound by time, because eternity requires time. Eternity is a product of time. I mean, eternity means infinitely backwards in time and infinitely forward in time, but that actually requires time. He can't exist for eternity if there is no time before the universe. Stig, what you're doing here is nothing more than cherry picking. If you would actually bother to show what the context of that verse was, then the picture would be completely different. Now, I don't even understand why you're bringing this up, because you obviously don't believe in the literal account of Genesis. So why are you bringing this up as a part of your argument when even you don't believe that the account of Genesis is literal in any way? Now, if you want to really see what the first 10 verses of the first chapter of Genesis actually refers to, it's something like this. Yeah, so leaving my awesome artistic skills aside, when the Bronze Age sheep herders who wrote the Bible said in the beginning, what they were referring to was the first step of the creation process which God used to create the earth as depicted in the diagram that I just demonstrated. They weren't referring to in the beginning of time, space, and the universe, because they didn't know about the existence of these things. First of all, you are contradicting yourself, because in the passages that you brought up from the New Testament, you demonstrated that God made promises before time even existed. How is that even possible for God to make promises before time? Now, second of all, I agree with you on one premise, and that is that before time there was no causality. But if before time there was no causality, then the universe sprouting into existence from nothing doesn't need a cause. If the universe doesn't need a cause to sprout from nothing, then where does God fit into the picture exactly? Why do we need to add God as a useless addition to this model? Nothing more than an assertion. Let me again demonstrate how this is not possible. You're saying that God is eternal. Eternity is nothing more than infinite time. So on one hand, you're saying that God is eternal, therefore he existed for an infinite amount of time, but on the other hand, you're saying that God created time. So God is eternal, but did God create eternity? That is a paradox. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're complicating things but really achieving nothing. Because if God exists in these two dimensions of time, then he could not have created them. This conclusion only follows from contradictory premises, and you still didn't demonstrate why exactly you are asserting God into a picture in which he is not needed. Stig, you're shooting yourself in the foot here, because you're trying to excuse God from needing a cause by saying that before time began, there was no causality. But time began in the Big Bang. Therefore, the Big Bang doesn't need a cause. And if the Big Bang doesn't need a cause, then we don't need a God. Stig, you're projecting here. The only ones that came to an unnecessary metaphysical conclusion are ones who cannot accept a universe being created without a cause. Science might not really have an absolute explanation, but science and atheists don't resort to believing in metaphysical things, while you jump to the conclusion that there must be a metaphysical entity that decided to create all this stuff, including time. This is starting to lean a little bit towards straw man, because multiverse theory isn't the only theory that can explain how universes can be created from nothing without a cause. But just look at the integrity of atheists compared to theists. Atheist cosmologists at least admit that we don't know what the right answer is yet. So we're proposing a bunch of theories, each of them capable of explaining how universes can be created from nothing without a cause, while theists jumped to a conclusion and they already know that it's true. Compared to all the evidence that you have for the God done did it theory, fuck Occam's razor. Occam's razor is one of the most retarded ideas ever created. Occam's razor isn't what you use when what you're trying to get to is the truth, okay? Because the most simple answer is not necessarily the one that is true. The earth being flat is intuitive and simple. It doesn't mean that gravity doesn't form the earth into a sphere, okay? Anyway, what could be a more simple answer than we have no idea how the universe was created from nothing? Stig, is this really the best you can do? The intelligent design argument? Really? I mean, the argumentation in this video is getting progressively worse and worse and giving me more and more of a headache. Do I need to remind you that you actually believed for most of your life that all life forms on Earth were also intelligently designed, and how much bullshit you know that that is? For God existing outside of time, you can say that the laws of physics which enable universes to be created from nothing exist outside of time, therefore you don't need a God. And for God existing on a plane of time which didn't have a beginning, well, since God didn't create that plane of time by definition, since he exists in it, then therefore God didn't create everything. And not only that, there was a plane of time that existed, if not before God, then at least simultaneously with him.